The forest was silent, but the silence was heavy, like the world was holding its breath. The wind moved through the tall silver trees, and the leaves gave a soft metallic sound. A blind, alien girl named Lyra walked carefully, one step at a time, her hands searching the air, her ears open to every little sound. She was used to darkness, for she had never seen light since the day she was born. Her people pitied her, some mocked her, but most ignored her, for in their world the blind had no place. But tonight was different. A voice came from the shadows, low and calm, yet filled with something strange, something warm. "Don't move," the voice said. "I have something for you." Lyra froze, her heart beating fast. She had heard stories of humans, weak creatures from a faraway planet, strange and unpredictable. And now one stood before her. Daniel stepped closer, carrying something small in his hands. He was a human engineer, but not just any man. He was one who believed in impossible things. His people often said humans could not match alien science, but Daniel thought different. He looked at the girl with kindness, not with pity. In his hands was a device, a visor made from scavenged alien parts and human invention. "This is for you," he whispered. Lyra tilted her head, suspicious. "For me? Why?" Daniel smiled. "Because humans do not walk away when someone suffers." He lifted the visor, smooth and black with faint blue lights glowing along the edge. "It might let you see," he said softly. "At least, it should." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her people had tried many times to heal her blindness, and all had failed. Why would this human succeed? And yet his voice carried no lies, only hope. Her hands trembled as she touched the visor, cold metal against her skin. She whispered, "You risk much, human. They will punish you." Daniel shrugged. "Let them try. I don't regret building this." Slowly, he placed the visor on her head. A soft hum filled the air. Lights blinked across its surface. And then, the darkness cracked. At first it was pain like fire across her mind. Then came light, bright and sharp, colors she had no name for. Her breath came fast, and she stumbled back. Daniel reached out, steadying her. "Easy," he said. "Your mind needs time." Tears welled in her eyes as her vision cleared. She saw the human's face, rough, tired, but smiling. She saw the trees glowing silver in the moonlight, and for the first time, she saw the stars, endless and alive above her. Lyra fell to her knees, her hands covering her mouth. I can see," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel crouched beside her, smiling gently. "Yes, you can." She turned her face to him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Why would you do this for me? You gain nothing." Daniel shook his head. "Humans do not help for gain. We help because it is right." She looked at him in silence, her heart heavy with feelings she could not name. But far away, in the shadows between the trees, something stirred. A figure moved, armor shining under starlight. A quiet voice spoke into a comm device. "The human has built the forbidden," the voice said, cold and sharp. "He must be taken." The signal traveled fast, reaching ears that would not forgive. Soldiers prepared, ships readied, orders whispered in the dark. Lyra felt a chill in the wind, her new eyes catching strange movement among the trees. She frowned, gripping Daniel's sleeve. "Someone watches us," she whispered, fear in her voice. Daniel turned quickly, scanning the forest, but he saw nothing, only silver leaves swaying. Still, the air carried danger, heavy and close. For now, Lyra's world was filled with light, but neither she nor Daniel knew that this gift would change everything. It was more than a visor, more than a tool. It was proof. Proof that humans could create what others thought impossible. And in that proof lay danger, because the Empire feared one thing above all: human imagination. The night grew colder, the stars sharper. Daniel whispered to himself, "I only wanted to give her sight." But somewhere deep down he already knew his gift would bring enemies, and they would not stop Not until he was taken. Not until the human who dared to build hope was silenced. The night sky was quiet, but above the forest a shadow moved across the stars. It was a silent ship, black as stone, drifting low without sound. Inside, soldiers prepared, their armor shining like liquid metal, their faces hidden behind masks. A voice spoke through their comm channel, cold and sharp. "The human has broken the law," it said. "He has built what should never exist. Prepare retrieval team." The soldiers nodded, no emotion in their eyes, for they were trained to obey, not to question. On the ground, Lyra sat near the fire Daniel had made. Her new visor glowed faint blue, casting light across her face. She kept touching her eyes, still amazed at the miracle she now carried. The flames danced, and for the first time in her life she could see them. Her heart beat fast with joy, but also with fear. Because deep inside she knew gifts always came with a price. Daniel worked quietly, adjusting a small device in his hands. His mind was busy, but his heart felt calm. He looked at Lyra and smiled. "How are your eyes now?" She turned to him, her lips trembling with wonder. "I see the world. I see you. I see the sky," she whispered. "It is more than a dream." Daniel nodded. "Then it was worth every risk." Lyra frowned, her voice low. "Do you not fear the soldiers? The Empire does not forgive humans who break their rules." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Fear. Yes, I fear, but I fear more what happens if no one dares. Humans survive by hope, by building what others call impossible." She studied him, her heart torn, for she had never known a creature who spoke like this. Her own people feared change. But this human embraced it. It made him dangerous, yet it also made him special. Above them, the ship circled lower, silent as a predator. Inside, the commander gave orders. "Surround the target. No mistakes. The girl is irrelevant. The human must be taken alive." The soldiers loaded their weapons, their armor glowing faint red under the dim light. The mission was clear, and they would not fail. Lyra suddenly stiffened, her visor catching movement between the trees. She saw glimmers, tiny reflections, shapes that did not belong. Her fingers gripped Daniel's arm. "Something is out there," she whispered. Daniel turned, scanning the darkness, but his eyes saw nothing. Only Lyra's new sight revealed the truth. Dozens of armored figures moving slowly, surrounding them like hunters. Daniel's heart tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "We need to move," he said, quickly throwing dirt over the fire. The flames died, leaving them in cold shadows. He packed his small tools into a bag, his hands fast and practiced. Lyra followed, her breathing uneven. She had never felt fear so strong, yet she trusted him. They slipped into the deeper forest. The ground was rough, branches sharp, but Daniel knew the path. He had mapped secret tunnels years before, for he always planned for danger. As they ran, Lyra whispered, "Why do they want you, not me?" Daniel replied between breaths, "Because the visor is proof. Proof that humans can build what they could not, and that scares them more than war." In the shadows of the forest, a soldier raised his weapon. Through his visor, he marked the human. "Target." His finger pressed the trigger, but the commander's voice stopped him. "Not yet. The order is capture, not kill. Let him run. He will lead us to more secrets." The soldier lowered his weapon, obeying without question. Meanwhile, Daniel led Lyra into a hidden cave. The walls glowed faint green with moss, the air damp and cold. Inside, old equipment hummed softly, machines he had hidden long ago. "This is one of my shelters," Daniel said, catching his breath. Lyra looked around with wide eyes. "You built all this in secret?" He nodded. "Humans build in shadows when light is denied. It is our way to survive." She walked closer, touching the strange machines. Her visor lit the room, casting silver light across the walls. For the first time, she saw the human not just as a stranger, but as something more. A spark in the dark. Her heart whispered that his fight was now her fight too. But far away, inside the silent ship, the commander received new instructions. A deeper voice spoke through the calm, filled with authority. The human is not just a lawbreaker. It said, "He is a seed of rebellion. Bring him alive. Destroy all else. Do not fail." The soldiers replied as one, their voices cold. "We obey." Back in the cave, Daniel rested for a moment, then looked at Lyra. "You must understand. From this moment on, life will never be the same," he said. She met his eyes, her voice steady. "Then I will not turn away. You gave me sight. I will not leave you in darkness." For a long moment, silence filled the cave, broken only by the hum of hidden machines. But outside, boots touched the ground. Dozens of soldiers. Moving closer, their steps echoed in the night. The hunt had begun, and the walls of the cave would not protect them for long. The cave shook with a low rumble, as if the earth itself was warning them. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the humming machines flickered with faint light. Lyra's visor caught the glow of red scanners sweeping across the forest outside. The soldiers had arrived, their steps heavy, their armor shining faintly like fireflies of war. Daniel pressed a hand against the wall, listening, his face tight with focus. "They are here," he whispered, "and they will not wait long." Lyra's heart pounded, her breath sharp and quick. She had only just learned to see, and now her new vision showed her enemies moving. Closer, figures in dark armor, weapons raised, eyes like shadows. She grabbed Daniel's sleeve, fear in her voice. "We cannot fight them." Daniel shook his head. "We will not fight. Not yet. We will run." He opened a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a narrow tunnel behind the machines. The passage was dark and damp, but it stretched deep into the mountain. "Go," he urged, pushing Lyra forward. She hesitated. "What if they find us?" Daniel gave a small, tired smile. "Then we make sure they pay for every step." With no time left, they entered the tunnel, the panel closing behind them. Outside, the commander of the soldiers raised his hand. "Breach," he ordered. An explosion tore through the cave entrance, fire and smoke flooding the air. The soldiers moved in, weapons scanning, eyes searching, but the room was empty, the machines silent. Only the faint trail of heat revealed the hidden passage. The commander's mask tilted, his voice calm. "He is running. Good. Let him run." Deep inside the tunnel, Daniel led the way. His small light flickering against stone walls, Lyra stumbled, unused to uneven ground. But she followed. Her visor adjusted to the dark, showing her cracks, corners, and shadows. She whispered, "They are behind us. I can see them moving fast." Daniel quickened his pace. "Then we move faster." The tunnel twisted like a snake. At times it narrowed so much they had to crawl. At times it opened wide into chambers, filled with dripping water and broken stone. Their breaths echoed, their footsteps loud in the silence. Lyra's new eyes caught everything, but every sight made her fear more real. The soldiers were closing in, never stopping, never tiring. Suddenly Daniel stopped, his light flashing against a metal hatch in the wall. He opened it quickly, revealing an old underground rail car, rusted but still alive with faint power. "This will take us farther," he said, pulling Lyra inside. He pressed a button and the car shuddered, humming with weak energy. The rail line lit up, and with a groan the car began to move. The tunnel outside blurred as they sped away. For a moment, Lyra felt hope. The car carried them deeper into safety. Faster than the soldiers could run. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wide. "You planned all this. Did you always know they would come?" Daniel looked ahead, his jaw tight. "I always knew someday someone would come. Humans are not meant to be free in their eyes. We are only meant to obey, so yes, I prepared." But hope was short. Behind them, metal claws screeched against the rail. The soldiers had released hunter drones, small machines shaped like spiders with red glowing eyes. The drones clung to the tunnel walls, racing after the car. Lyra gasped. "They are coming, faster than us." Daniel pulled a lever, forcing the old car to go faster, sparks flying from its wheels. The tunnel roared with noise as the chase grew closer, The drones leapt, their claws scraping the side of the rail car. Daniel grabbed a tool from his bag, a heavy wrench, and smashed one through the open window. The drone sparked, its body twisting before falling onto the tracks, but 3 more took its place, red eyes burning through the dark. Lyra cried out, "They will break through." Daniel's voice was steady. "Then we keep them busy." She remembered the visor, how it showed more than normal eyes. Looking ahead, she saw the tunnel split into 2 paths. "Left," she shouted. "Take the left rail, the right is broken." Daniel pulled the lever, the car screeched, and they rushed left. Behind them, 2 drones slammed into the broken right path, crashing into the abyss. But still, more followed. The chase felt endless. Sparks lit the tunnel like fireflies, the roar of metal shaking the ground. Daniel fought. The drones smashing, twisting, pulling wires. Lyra guided him with her new vision, warning him of attacks before they came. Together they survived, step by step, breath by breath. Finally, light appeared ahead. The tunnel ended at an old outpost, its doors rusted but half open. The rail car screeched to a stop, throwing them. Onto the ground they scrambled forward, running into the outpost. For a moment, silence filled the air, broken only by their racing hearts. Then a sound came, steady footsteps echoing inside the outpost. A figure stood in the shadows, waiting. Not a soldier, not a drone, but a man. Daniel froze, his breath caught. The figure stepped into the dim light, and a familiar face appeared. A face Daniel once trusted, a face from his own past. "Daniel," the man said with a cold smile, "I knew you would come here." The outpost was silent, but silence did not mean safety. Old machines hummed weakly, their lights flickering like dying stars. The smell of rust and dust filled the air. Daniel pulled Lyra behind him, his eyes fixed on the figure standing in the shadows. The man stepped forward, his boots echoing across the metal floor, and when his face appeared, Daniel's breath stopped. It was Captain Reyes, a man he once called friend, a soldier who had fought beside him years ago. Reyes had been strong, loyal, and proud, but now his eyes were cold, his smile sharp like a blade. "Daniel," Reyes said slowly, "I warned you once. Do not build what is forbidden, yet here you are." Daniel's jaw tightened, his hand tightening on the wrench he still carried. "You work for them now?" he asked, his voice low. Reyes nodded without shame. "I do what keeps our people alive. The Empire rules, and those who obey survive. Those who resist are crushed. You know this." Lyra stepped forward, her visor glowing faint blue. She spoke, with anger. "And what of freedom? What of hope?" Reyes looked at her with disdain. "Alien girl, you speak like a human, foolish and blind. Hope does not feed armies. Hope does not stop fleets." Daniel shook his head. "You once believed. In more, Reyes, you once fought for choice, for dignity." Reyes smirked. "And what did that give us? Graves and burned cities. No, Daniel, I learned. The only way forward is obedience." He raised his hand, and soldiers stepped out from the shadows, armored, armed, surrounding them in silence. Lyra gasped, gripping Daniel's sleeve. There were too many, far too many. Reyes's voice grew sharper. "Surrender the visor, surrender yourself, and I will let the girl live." Daniel's heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. "No, I will not. You fear what humans can build, because you know one idea can spread faster than any army." Lyra looked up at him, eyes wide with fear but also with pride. For the first time she saw what Daniel truly was, not just an inventor, but a fighter. Rhea's smile faded, replaced by anger. "Then you leave me no choice," he said. He motioned with his hand, and soldiers stepped closer, their weapons glowing red. Daniel stood tall, placing himself between them and Lyra. His voice was firm. "If you want me, come and take me." For a moment, time froze. The soldiers raised their weapons, the air filled with tension. Lyra's visor scanned the room, searching for escape. She whispered, "There is a maintenance shaft behind the far wall." Daniel nodded slightly, his mind racing, but Reyes noticed the movement, his eyes narrowing. You cannot run, Reyes said coldly. Do not make this harder than it must be. Daniel took a slow breath, then whispered to Lyra, when I move, you run. She shook her head. I will not leave you. His voice hardened. You must, or we both die. Then, in a flash, Daniel hurled his wrench at the nearest light above. The bulb shattered, sparks showering the room. Darkness fell, broken only by the glow of weapons and Lyra's visor. Run! Daniel shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the wall. Shots rang out, red beams slicing the air. Metal burned. Machines exploded. Smoke filled the room. Lyra's visor guided them through the chaos. She saw the outline of the shaft and pulled Daniel toward it. But before they could reach, Rhea stepped into their path, his blade glowing with deadly light. You cannot escape me, Daniel, he said, his voice calm and deadly. Daniel grabbed a broken pipe from the floor, raising it like a weapon. Then you will have to kill me, he growled. The clash was fast and brutal. Rhea's blade cut through the air, sparks flying as it struck the pipe. Daniel fought with fury. Every strike fueled by desperation. Lyra watched, her heart breaking, her hands trembling. She wanted to help, but she had no weapon, only her sight. Reyes pushed Daniel back, his strength greater, his training sharper. You cannot win, he sneered. You never could. But Daniel refused to fall. Every time he was knocked down, he rose again. The fight filled the outpost with echoes of steel and fire. At last, Reyes struck hard, knocking Daniel to the ground. The pipe rolled away. Useless, Reyes raised his blade high, his voice cold. It ends here, Lyra screamed, throwing herself in front of Daniel. The visor glowed brighter, its light cutting through the smoke. Reyes paused, the light reflecting in his eyes. For a heartbeat, silence filled the room. Then Reyes's voice hardened. Take him alive, he ordered. Kill the girl. The soldiers moved forward, their weapons rising. Daniel's roar filled the chamber as he lunged forward with bare hands. The fight was not over, not yet, but the odds were darker than ever.
Smoke filled the outpost, black and heavy, the air tasted of metal and fire. Soldiers moved through the haze, their red weapons glowing like angry eyes. Lyra pulled Daniel's arm, her voice shaking. We must run, but Daniel's eyes burned with a different fire. No, he said, his voice firm. We stand here. He looked around quickly, his mind racing. Every broken machine, every loose cable, every piece of scrap could be turned into something. That was the human way. Turn weakness into strength, turn junk into survival. Lyra watched him grab wires, pipes, and shattered panels, his hands moving fast. What are you doing? She asked. Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. Building traps. The soldiers advanced slowly, careful in the smoke. Their commander's voice echoed. Find them, no mistakes. The human lives, the girl dies. Daniel pulled Lyra behind a broken console. He whispered, listen to me. They are stronger, faster. But they do not think like us. We use the place. We use their pride. Lyra's visor glowed faint blue. Scanning the outpost, she saw paths, loose beams, old fuel pipes, all dangerous if used right. She pointed quickly. There, the pipes. If broken they release fire. Daniel nodded. Good, then we use fire. The first soldier stepped into the chamber, his weapon ready. Daniel pulled a wire, and a heavy beam crashed down from above. The soldier fell, crushed under sparks and steel. Lyra gasped, shocked by the sudden violence. Daniel's voice was low. One down, more to go. Another soldier advanced from the left. Daniel kicked a loose fuel can into his path, then he lit it with a broken circuit. Flames roared, forcing the soldier back. Armor glowing from the heat, the chamber shook with fire and noise, but the soldiers kept coming, relentless and calm. Lyra's visor caught movement from the right. Daniel, behind you, she cried. He spun, swinging a steel rod into the soldier's helmet. The impact rang like a bell, sending the soldier stumbling back. Daniel's arms ached, but his spirit refused to bend. Reyes watched from the shadows, his blade still glowing. His voice carried through the chamber, sharp and cold. You fight like a desperate man, Daniel, but desperation only delays death. Daniel growled back. Better to die fighting than live as a slave. Reyes smirked, motioning his men forward. Then die you shall, he whispered. The battle turned into chaos. Traps exploded, sparks flew, beams fell. Daniel fought with every tool, every trick, every ounce of strength. Lyra guided him, shouting warnings, pointing at soldiers he could not see. Her visor became their shield, her voice their compass. Together they stood against the storm, but the soldiers were endless. For every one who fell, two more took his place. Daniel's arms grew heavy, his breath ragged. Lyra's voice cracked, her body trembling. Still they refused to stop, still they stood. At last, an explosion ripped through the chamber, the ceiling cracked, dust raining down. Daniel dragged Lyra into a side passage. Coughing hard, they stumbled into a smaller room filled with old generators. The machines hummed with unstable power. Daniel's eyes narrowed. If they want a fight, then we give them one they will never forget. He began pulling wires, connecting circuits, overloading the power lines. Lyra stared at him, shocked. You will destroy the whole outpost. Daniel nodded, his voice grim. Yes, and maybe us too, but better that than to be taken. Her heart pounded, torn between fear and loyalty. At last she whispered, then I stand with you. The door burst open, soldiers storming inside. Reyes stepped in after them, his blade shining brighter, his eyes locked on Daniel. You cannot escape, human, he said, his voice calm. Daniel stood tall, sparks flying around him. His hands held the overloaded cables, power humming like thunder. Maybe not, he said, but I can still choose how this ends. The room glowed with deadly light. Lyra's visor flared, warning of unstable energy. The soldiers hesitated, their scanners screaming of danger. Reyes' eyes narrowed, sensing the trap. Stop him, he roared, but it was too late. Daniel slammed the cables together. A blast of light filled the room, white and blinding. The explosion shook the ground, fire racing through the walls. The outpost screamed with the sound of tearing metal. Lyra cried out as Daniel pulled her down, shielding her with his body. The world became fire, light, and chaos. For a moment, silence followed, then smoke cleared, rubble falling around them. Daniel and Lyra crawled from the wreckage, bruised and burned but alive. Behind them the outpost burned, soldiers trapped under steel and fire. But Reyes was not gone. Through the flames, his figure walked, slower now but unbroken. His blade still glowed, his eyes still cold. Daniel's heart sank, his voice bitter. He survives. Lyra gripped his hand, her voice trembling. What now? Daniel looked at her, his jaw set. Now, he whispered, we fight to the end. The outpost was broken, walls torn apart, metal twisted like paper. Flames climbed the ceilings, and smoke crawled through every corner. Daniel coughed hard, his lungs burning, but his eyes never left the figure walking through the fire. It was Reyes, alive, his armor scorched but his body unbroken. His glowing blade lit the smoke, turning the ruins into a battlefield of red light. You never learn, Reyes said coldly. You think chaos saves you, but chaos only delays the end. Daniel helped Lyra to her feet, his arms bruised and cut. Lyra's visor flickered, damaged by the blast, but still showing faint blue light. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. Daniel, we cannot stop him. He is too strong. Daniel looked at her, his jaw set, his eyes filled with something more than fear. Maybe he is stronger, maybe he is faster, but he does not have what we have. What do we have? She whispered. Daniel clenched his fists, resolve. Reyes stepped closer, his soldiers scattered and wounded behind him. He lifted his blade, its red light reflecting in his cold eyes. You will not leave this place alive, he promised. Daniel picked up a broken metal rod from the ground, holding it like a weapon. His body ached, but his spirit refused to bend. Then you will have to kill me to stop me, Daniel said, his voice hard as iron. The two men clashed, steel against energy, sparks flying in the dark. Every strike shook Daniel's arms, every swing felt heavier than the last, but he refused to let go, refused to give ground. Lyra shouted warnings, guiding him with her visor. Left. Block right. Step back now. Her voice became his second sight, her courage fueling his strength. Reyes laughed as he fought. You cannot win, Daniel, you fight with scraps, with desperation. I fight with power. Daniel's breath came ragged, but his voice stayed strong. Power without heart is empty, and you will never understand that. Reyes snarled, his strikes faster, sharper. Daniel stumbled, barely blocking in time, sparks burning his skin. Lyra saw the danger, her visor catching movement behind them. Soldiers crawling from rubble, raising their weapons. Daniel, she screamed, pointing. Daniel glanced back, and in that moment Reyes struck. The blade sliced Daniel's side, blood staining his shirt. He fell to one knee, gasping, his vision swimming. Reyes raised his blade high, ready for the final strike, but Lyra leapt forward. Grabbing a broken panel of metal, she swung it with all her strength, striking Reyes' arm. The blade slashed the wall instead of Daniel. Sparks exploding. Reyes turned on her with rage. "You dare stand against me, girl?" he roared. Daniel forced himself up, blood dripping. He pulled Lyra back behind him, his voice fierce. "She dares, because she sees what you cannot." Reyes sneered. "And what is that?" Daniel's voice was steady, his eyes burning. "That humanity is more than flesh, more than fear. It is resolve, the will to fight even when the end is certain." The chamber trembled as another explosion shook the outpost. Above them the ceiling cracked, dust and stone falling. Reyes steadied himself, glaring at Daniel. "You speak like a hero, but you will die like all fools." Daniel's grip on the rod tightened. "Maybe," he said, "but I will not kneel." The soldiers behind Reyes opened fire, beams slicing through the smoke. Daniel dragged Lyra behind a generator, metal shielding them barely. Sparks rained down, the room filled with heat and noise. Lyra's visor scanned the generator, her voice urgent. "It is unstable. If overloaded it could explode." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Then that is our weapon." He ripped wires from the machine, sparks biting his skin. Lyra's hands joined his, steady despite her fear. Together they worked fast, connecting lines, forcing energy to build. The generator screamed, light pulsing bright. Reyes saw it and shouted, "Stop them!" But the soldiers were too slow, the charge too strong. Daniel pushed Lyra down just as the generator erupted. A shockwave blasted through the chamber, hurling soldiers into walls. Reyes was thrown back, his armor scorched, his blade flickering. Daniel coughed, his body aching, but he stood again. He pulled Lyra up, whispering, "We keep moving. As long as we breathe, we fight." Reyes rose slowly from the rubble, his mask cracked, his voice a growl. "You think you won? This is nothing. More will come, more ships, more soldiers. You cannot stop the Empire." Daniel stared at him, his voice calm but sharp. "Maybe I cannot stop them, but I can show them what humans are, and once they see, they cannot unsee." Reyes' eyes darkened with fury. He raised his blade again, limping but unbroken. Before he could strike, a distant sound filled the air, the roar of engines, heavy and countless. Lyra turned her visor to the sky through the cracks above, her voice trembling. "Daniel, more ships, an entire fleet is coming." Daniel's heart sank, yet his eyes hardened. He whispered, "Then this is only the beginning." The ground shook as the fleet descended, lights filled the sky, shadows covering the ruins. Reyes smiled coldly. "Now you will see the true power of the Empire." Daniel pulled Lyra close, his hand gripping hers, his body broken, his spirit unbroken. "No," he whispered, "now they will see the power of human resolve." The sky burned with fire, engines roared like thunder, shaking the ground. Dozens of warships descended through the clouds, their shadows swallowing the ruins of the outpost. Their lights cut across the night, bright and merciless. Lyra's visor glowed faint blue as she stared upward, her breath caught in her throat. An entire fleet was coming, soldiers beyond number, weapons beyond measure. Daniel stood beside her, blood on his shirt, his face pale but his eyes fierce. Every bone in his body ached, but his spirit refused to break. He squeezed Lyra's hand, steadying her. "They will not stop," he whispered, "not until I am taken." Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "Then run, please, save yourself." But Daniel shook his head, his jaw tight. "No, I will not run anymore. I will choose." Reyes limped forward through the smoke, his blade still glowing faint red, though his armor was cracked and his body burned. His will was iron. He looked at Daniel with cold hatred. "You cannot fight a fleet, you cannot fight the Empire," he said. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Maybe not with weapons, but with something stronger." Reyes sneered. "Stronger? Nothing is stronger than the Empire." Daniel raised the broken visor device from his bag, holding it high. "This," he said, his voice carrying through the ruins. "This visor is not just for one girl, not just for one gift. It is proof that humans can build what you could not. It is proof that no mind can be chained forever." Lyra's heart pounded as she watched him, her eyes wide with awe. Reyes growled, "Destroy it before others see." But Daniel smiled faintly. "Too late." with quick hands, he connected the visor to a damaged transmitter. Sparks flew, the machine hummed. Lyra gasped, "Daniel, what are you doing?" He looked at her, his eyes calm. "I am sending it, the design, the knowledge, to every channel, every signal, across the stars." Her breath caught. "You would give it to everyone? Even the Empire?" "Yes," Daniel said, "because once an idea is free, no empire can control it." The transmitter screamed with power, light flaring across the ruins. The signal raced through the sky, climbing higher and higher, up into the ships, out into the void, spreading across worlds. Reyes roared in fury, charging forward. "Stop him! Do not let it spread!" But Daniel stood firm, his body broken yet his will unshaken. Lyra stepped in front of him, her visor glowing bright. She raised her hands, as if her small frame could stop an army. Her voice rang with strength. "You fear him because he is human, because he gives what you never would, hope." Reyes swung his blade, but Daniel blocked with a broken rod. The clash rang loud, sparks flying. They fought with everything left, every strike filled with rage and resolve. Above them, the fleet stirred, voices echoed through the ships, confusion spreading as the signal reached them. Soldiers watched the visor design flash across their screens. Engineers studied the strange human invention, realizing it held ideas their empire never dared to try. And whispers began, quiet but dangerous, "If a human can do this, what else can they do?" Reyes pressed harder, his strength greater. He forced Daniel to his knees, his blade close to his throat. "You will die here, human," he hissed. Daniel met his eyes, his voice steady even as blood dripped from his wounds. "Maybe, but you cannot kill the idea, you cannot kill what I just gave them." Reyes' face twisted with rage, his blade rising for the final strike. But then a sound cut the air, voices from the sky, not orders from commanders, but cries from soldiers. Some refused to fire, some lowered their weapons. Confusion spread through the fleet, cracks forming in the Empire's perfect armor. Reyes turned his head for only a moment, and in that moment Daniel struck, slamming the rod into his chest. Reyes fell back, armor cracking, his blade sparking out. He roared in fury, but his body failed him. Daniel collapsed beside Lyra, gasping for air, his strength nearly gone. She caught him, her hands trembling, her visor glowing with soft light. "You gave them more than sight," she whispered, tears falling. "You gave them freedom, but the battle was not over." Above, the fleet prepared its weapons, red lights glowing across the sky. The Empire was still powerful, still merciless. The ground shook as energy built, ready to burn the ruins and everyone in them. Daniel lifted his head weakly, whispering, "This is only the beginning." Lyra held him close, her visor reflecting the fire in the sky. The ships lowered, shadows covering them. The Empire's voice thundered from above, cold and final, "Human Daniel, surrender now, or all will burn." Daniel's eyes closed for a moment, then opened, filled with steel. "No," he whispered, "I already chose." The fleet's weapons powered up, the air shaking with deadly force. Lyra gripped his hand, her heart breaking. Around them, flames crackled, rubble glowed, and the world seemed ready to end. But in the silence before the fire, hope stirred, because somewhere, across the stars, others had seen what Daniel had given, and whispers of rebellion had already begun. The sky flashed with light, the ground roared with thunder. The final choice had been made, and the galaxy would never be the same.